Thank you for the attendance. I think. So Empire's a little bit different. We're a London listed company. We're exploring exclusively now in Australia, and we have a pretty large diversified exploration portfolio, probably covering just over 2,000 square kilometres in 4 pretty decent sized exploration camps. But the focus that we have and want to talk about today is really this a new discovery that we made at a place called Pitfield. Pitfield's it's a sedimentary basin located some 300 kilometres north of Perth, and sits right on a major fault structure. We drilled there, made a drilling program back in May, June, and discovered a pretty decent titanium-enriched mineral system. But we also have identified, a pretty significant giant hydrothermal system that is also likely to be rich in copper. The focus that we bring is basically an international company. So we have a chairman, Dr. Neil O'Brien, who's based in Toronto. Finance director is based out of London, where we do most of our fundraising at the moment. Our shareholder base is spread. Probably about 10% of that is in Australia, but a third of our shareholder base is in North America, and the rest is basically out of the UK and Europe. So just talk a bit briefly about why we think that Pitfield is going to be the next biggest thing in the titanium space. Effectively, we started, as I said, a drilling campaign there back in May, June, and we had 21 holes drilled, 21 holes hit this titanium enrichment. We hit it from the very near surface, a few metres down. Every metre to the end of the hole, 150 metres deep, is in a pretty significant titanium mineral system. The titanium minerals are a bit of a mix. There's certainly ilmenite, rutile, epoxine within the system, but they're a pretty unusual altered, some of these minerals, so we're still piecing together how the system came about. But effectively, we believe it is literally one of the only the only discovered hydrothermally developed titanium system that we can point to in around the globe. One of the things I want to raise just quickly before we move on is that we've been flying airborne surveys over this region now for the last 12 months. We've flown effectively airborne magnetics, electromagnetics, gravity. We've done IP on the ground. I'll show you what those show. But we can trace this mineralised system over a length of 40 kilometres. We've cracked it 10 kilometres wide, and we've actually modelled it down 5 kilometres deep into the sedimentary basin. So whatever it is, it's of a scale that is pretty largely unheard of, to be honest. One of the other things that we should flag is that we're right on the edge of the Archean. So the Yilgarn Craton sits on the eastern edge of our boundaries. The Perth Basin sits on the western edge, but we're sitting in this very unique sedimentary, track, if you like, that's caught a whole pile of felsic sediment, sandstones, siltstones, and various conglomerates. The fluids that have come up have actually completely altered these sediments and left the titanium mineralisation, and as I said, copper, nickel, zinc, and high-grade silver have been picked up. So basically, the starting point and why we became very interested in Pitfield was the historical data. It was a bit blurry, but basically work done by the West Australian government had flagged a fairly large anomaly in the basin. We then did an airborne magnetic survey, picked up a pretty high magnetic response over about a 40-kilometre target. We flew electromagnetics and tracked that even further, and came back in July. Next one. And in July, we basically flew a pretty detailed gravity survey over this whole license area as well. We picked up a very high density core. So the warmer colours in this particular slide and what's basically outlined now in those yellow blobs is the highest density rocks that we've picked up with the gravity. Curious enough, and as always luck will have it, our 21 holes that we first put in, none of those drilled into the high gravity areas. Basically, we were chasing an IP anomaly. Chargeable responses from the IP indicated where we thought we could get disseminated sulfides. Drilled all the holes into those targets, found the titanium, didn't find the copper that we were looking for. We're now suspicious that these high gravity zones on the eastern margin of the anomaly might well be where the copper's gone and might well be indicative of different type of mineralisation sitting adjacent to the titanium enriched zones. One of the things that people have come up recently and said, basically this is just a glorified beach sand deposit. Well, it isn't. Beach sands don't generally go down 400 metres. We've just done a diamond drill program and we're still in the titanium mineralisation. Beach sands generally don't have every metre consistently from top to bottom down 400 metres. There's no layering, there's no indication of other minerals such as zircon, heavy minerals, there's no monazite, there's no typical beach type mineralisation. So the sediments themselves within the basin don't appear to be enriched in titanium, and it's only within the alteration that we're seeing the high grade. So the conclusions that we're coming to, even though it sort of goes against the normal geological models, is that the titanium's actually come up in the fluids. And we've gone back through all the historical data, the historical records, and basically when we look back through what groups like CRA were looking for copper here, we went back through their soil sampling programs and found that they actually did assay for titanium near surface in these soils, and they flagged two main targets within the anomaly. These red zones are everything over 1% TiO2 at surface, and that's each of those blobs represent about 50 square kilometres of surface area. So we've already identified 100 square kilometres of very high grade titanium bearing minerals. Our drilling program, as I said, 21 holes, has hardly touched the surface of this thing. We've probably drilled less than 1% of the target. We also went back through all the stream sediment sampling, found that the entire 40 kilometre anomaly is just full of titanium enriched systems. So we certainly think we're on something that is a massive giant system, and we're going back with diamond rigs now to start drilling and get some metallurgical core. I won't go into the titanium industry here. Those who are familiar with it would understand that it's usually dominated by beach sand material. Ilmenite makes up about 85% of the supply chain. Hard rock miners like Rio in Quebec, Telnus in Norway, they're mining an igneous system, basically high-grade titanium ores, but they, it's a hard rock mine and a sedimentary system, sedimentary rock. This is sandstones, siltstones. It certainly isn't a hard rock system. So again, it sort of, it sort of sits out there as the very odd-looking titanium deposit. What are we going to do with this? Well, we haven't given up on our copper targets. As I said, we've got some more drilling to do. We're going back in November. We're going to drill another 40 holes, something like 6,000 metres of drilling. Basically what you see there is the copper analysis that CRA came up with from auguring. And again, they found two big areas over 100 square kilometres of enrichment, copper in soils. We went back in and did our own surface sampling. We identified similar areas around theirs. We've extended the targets. But we also were picking up rock chip samples and rock specimens at 18% copper, 125 grams of silver. So what are we going to do now? Our diamond drilling is underway. We've put 3 diamond holes in, down 500 metres. The 3rd hole is about to be collared, and we will be announcing those results shortly. We've already gone back in now and resampled the high gravity targets. The RC program starts in 2 weeks, and we have the metallurgical core now to try and understand what the hell this titanium system is. But with high expectations that we have an option to come up with a simple processing route. So yeah, that's Empire. We've a lot of work ahead of us, early days, pretty exciting discovery, and we're still looking for our copper target. Thank you.